Welcome to our MTD training webinar produced in association with Sage. I'm John Stokdyk for AccountingWEB, and here with me is Chris Downing from Sage and Greg Houston from the Infinity Partnership. And together with them, we're going to spend the next 10-15 minutes or so looking at what you need to do to get your clients ready for MTD for income tax. The focus is really going to be on the nuts and bolts of the planning process, and we've got a little bit more time to think about that. But Chris, to set the scene and set things up for Greg, can you just remind us what the sort of main milestones, which clients accountants need to think about first and when they need to get them ready for MTD?
Well, in some respects, with the recent announcements from HMRC, HMRC has sort of dictated which type of clients we need to be working with first. So from April 24, that's MTD for some, with sole traders and landlords coming into MTD for ITSA, with general partnerships coming in from April 2025. But even with, let's say, those entity types dictating those who are the priorities, it's really important to be thinking about the client types. So are they landlords in terms of actually the number of properties they've got, the complexities they have, the propensity to use software already, but then more importantly, it's the tradespeople, the types of trades, how they want to raise invoices, but then also those more professional individuals, because they're probably already on top of their own personal books, whether they're manual or maintained in Excel. They'd like to have nice, tidy ledgers, but really it's all about thinking about how can you make them a little bit more digitized. So all with that, it's looking at the client types, it's looking at the quality of the information, but also thinking about the general segmentation in terms of their wills and their skills and their ability to actually work with you in maybe the next 18 months, 2 years, to basically get ready and ahead of steam in regards to MTD.
And what do you think are the longer term implications or practices? We're going through a transition, but what's the horizon beyond just getting clients through that maybe firms need to work into their plans?
Well, with any element of change, there are going to be challenges in terms of how your clients are going to be feeling towards it, because it is not you who is dictating, it's HMRC which is dictating this legislation change is happening. So clearly there's going to be a burden in terms of effort from yourselves, which you need to be thinking about your services, the quality, the regularity of how you're billing the work. But when we actually sort of, let's say, fast forward by a couple of years, and I want to say a couple of years, it's got to be on 26, 27, because we've got MTD for corporation tax coming to play. But if we imagine a world where the majority of your clients are using a digital tool of some sort, you've got access to effectively real-time or near-time information, what opportunities does that really open up for you as a accountancy practice? Because businesses will naturally be using digital tools on day one. They'll be doing more invoicing and categorization themselves, which really opens up the avenues in terms of, let's say, tax planning within the year, conversations around business commercial ideas in terms of business growth and management information. And really, it goes back to what we've been talking about for a number of years, the business advisory services beyond compliance and year-end tax.
I mean, Greg, you're nodding there. Greg, are you adjusting any of your kind of long-term strategies or plans at Infinity in the light of some of those implications Chris has raised?
Yeah, so I think the past 18 months have highlighted a big shift in your traditional accounting, if you like, from what Chris said, the compliance work. In the last 18 months, we have been a lot more advisory based. We're helping clients make tougher decisions. And having done MTD for VAT, we've seen a big benefit, as Chris said, with the live data. We're able to react quickly to decisions. We're not having to rely on information coming to us, the processing, then making a decision, which could take time. I did admire Chris's optimism on clients having nice tiny spreadsheets all the time. From a practical point of view, the MTD for income tax, a lot of these guys are people that we'll speak to once a year. They'll come in with their bags, drop stuff off, we process, we tell them their tax, and off they go. From our point of view, it's not the best relationship. It's not how we like to work. We like to be the proactive accountant and fulfill that advisory role. And ultimately, from our point of view, I think it would be better. We've seen the benefits of MTD for VAT. It's the sell of that to the client. Clients, especially this bracket, they're now coming in, telling them that they're going to have to be on some form of software, which comes at a cost, obviously. and then trying to explain the benefits to them. That's the biggest hurdle we're going to see immediately as we start this plan to get everybody onto software to comply with MTD. Right. But definitely a shift to advisory it's what we are using for our trainees now. We're not processors. Everything is becoming more automated. It takes away that element, and the advisory is going to become the skill of future accountants.
So your new client intake, you can sort of train them and get them sorted out the way you want. I mean, it's maybe the existing client base that's the more of a challenge. With them, what are the main sort of milestones you're planning around now?
So we've gone through the process. We started this last year, working towards the 2023 deadline of identifying the clients, identifying the form their records are held in, then identifying the platform, which obviously Sage has been implementing with us. And now we're at the stage where, as we start hitting the end of the next tax year, we're now processing the feedback we're giving to clients is, look, you're going to have to start looking at this. Here's the benefits. Here's what you need to do. Here's the compliance. We have had a bit of pushback this week with the changes that were obviously just announced with the additional year, but we are still going full steam ahead and saying, well, there's no reason for you not to get ready now.
And can you sort of sketch out in a bit more detail what your planning process looks like?
So we initially started a process at the start of this tax year, identifying all our clients who, should MTD hit now, wouldn't be compliant. We've done a full assessment of all of them. We've identified all our clients now who need to move. We have looked at the sectors they're in. We've looked at various different software options, what we need to get in place for them to comply. And now we're in that transition period of completing their last year's tax return and advising them this is what we need going forward in order to get you set up and ready, so it's not a mad panic at the end. Because I think I heard a lot of practices when MTD for VAT came in. There was a lot of running about last minute trying to comply. There was a mad rush on software, and it doesn't work, especially when you've got the volume of clients that are now going to have to comply with this. It's a big bracket when you consider how low the threshold is.
And from your lesson from MTD VAT, the first wave, do you have many people coming in, the sort of below the threshold VAT traders who will need to come in for April 22 to VAT regime?
We've brought them all in. We just made the decision at the time. We knew it was coming. We focused on the guys that were over the threshold, got them in, and then the next stage of that was get the guys under the threshold. We know they're going to have to do it. They are the harder sell. They're the smaller businesses. Every penny's a prisoner with these guys. When we're trying to sell them a bit of software for X amount a month, getting them to see the benefit, they just think it's big bad tax man and pushing more cost onto them. And ultimately, I think they're now seeing the benefits because we're now being able to do the advisory piece that they never really were able to get before, purely because they weren't giving us the information. This nudge now that they have to give us the information means that we can show them what we can do.
And have you had, from drawing on lessons again from the first wave, have you made any sort of adjustments in the resourcing and, bringing in new people or other techniques to help with that workload? Maybe as well you could just, how have you resourced? Maybe we'll talk about what they're working on next.
Well, I suppose from our point of view, we are a growing firm, so we were always in that place where we were starting to bring people in. It's changed the dynamics of our training, obviously, because we've now got that mindset of it's more of an advisory role. We've used some great tools with Sage called auto entry, where it takes away a big element of that processing. And let's be honest, nobody really enjoys doing that part of the job. It is the advisory, which is considered the exciting part. So resource-wise, we've looked at other digital add-ons that we can help us process quickly, because obviously we're seeing more volumes across the year, which actually helps us a lot more as opposed to getting certain periods of the year where we'll get a dump of lots of clients. So it has actually worked in our benefit that the resources aren't getting stretched as much at January, September, crunch points for us with big year ends and deadlines.
Okay, and do you have a sense of how much time and effort it takes to migrate sort of particular, and what kind of manageable chunks do your client groups fall into? Have you sort of structured and organized that sequence yet?
So the way we basically looked at it, we took the view at the end of this tax year so April 2021 was the point where we were going to start looking at this and really start grinding into it. We've got some clients who obviously have different accounting periods, they don't align with the tax year. So we've taken the view of when their next year end lands, that's their point. For the bulk of the guys who are landlords, other sources of income who will be aligned to the tax year, we're doing it as and when we complete their 2021 tax return. So we're having that conversation early, we're making them aware of it, we're telling them what they need to be doing, and we're presenting them with our solution, which in partnership with Sage, we've got the staff trained up, ready, all our staff are geared for that, so everybody can have the conversation, because obviously this is going to be a multi-department tax, accounts, compliance. It's going to be an effort from us all. So we're just taking it as the year progresses, really. We have got that extra year, but by doing it now, we've given ourselves a 2-year window to be in that place, which is nice.
That's some helpful forward planning tips. We'll turn that. Chris, with your kind of conversations with other practices, are there any other particularly interesting approaches that have emerged that you'd pass on?
Well, I've spoken to an awful lot of accountants, and even with the delay in MTD, they're still focused on how to actually plan ahead and get ready and start early as possible. But in terms of those little tidbits, in terms of how to actually do things slightly differently, little things like just ensuring your clients have a separate bank account for their business, trying to reduce the number of, let's say, personal type transactions going through the account, which you may want to be categorizing. But we cannot miss how important that client segmentation is. Understanding those clients which may have separate trades or additional rental income which will be affected, because really it's all about creating awareness within not only in your firm in terms of how important MTD is going to be in terms of impacting how it operates going forward, but just create that constant awareness with your clients. And I think Greg's doing an excellent job in terms of actually engaging with your clients now while you're doing a personal tax return, for example, talking about MTD, or more talk about how can you actually deliver tax in a more efficient manner. But also, when we sort of jump ahead in terms of, let's say, April 23, a year before mandation, that is when HMRC is recommending to bring your clients into the agent service account. And when you think the biggest pain point for MTD for VAT was leaving, let's say, porting clients across to the VAT ASA account, the fact that you can bring clients over to ITSA a good 12 months before mandation is a really good way of putting that into the process. So once you actually sign off a personal tax return for maybe 22, 23, part of the process should be, or could be, is actually move them into MTD for ITSA. It doesn't mean they're mandated and have to use digital record keeping. They're just in the new port, which basically means you can actually surface information more effectively as a practice and working across all your client base in one place. Hence why Greg also took the approach of moving clients below the VAT threshold into MTD early, just to make life easier for the practice.
It's great points, Chris. Thanks, Greg. What would be your top tip for implementing sort of technology and practice change on this scale?
I think it's rely on guys like Sage. From a practice point of view, these guys know this inside out. They are a great tool. I will put my hand up. Many years ago, Sage used to phone us, our account manager would be phoning every other day telling us about something, and it does go at the bottom of the list. Since then, I have completely flipped the other way, and I'm constantly on the phone to our account manager and some of the guys at Sage saying, what are you doing for this? How are you helping us on this? These guys know this. It's their bread and butter. Use them. They're there it's a great resource. Got an extension. Use it as a buffer if you need it at the end, but I would stick to the original plan because there's no harm in doing that.
This video is part of that exercise with Sage. I think we have benefited from all 4 videos on stepping practitioners through the sort of sequence of the internal, the client exercise, the technology, and just what the objective is. So you're right on the money there, Greg. And with Sage, there's plenty more resources Chris and his colleagues have put together at sage.com/MTD, I believe. And again, we'll be covering it continually for the next few years on Accounting Web. Greg, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your ideas with us. And Chris, you too, as always, for supporting our joint efforts to educate and support and help accountants. So for the time being, make sure to view the companion videos this series and keep your eye on Sage and AccountingWeb.co.uk for all your MTD information needs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.